Okay. Um, yeah, I think we can get started. It's capturing your audio, I think.
Yep.
Yep, perfect. Yeah, so thank you again for saying yes to this interview, Burrito.
No, you're very welcome. I think it's a really nice group you've got there, and if there's anything I can do to kind of help you guys, kind of build it and particularly flesh out the extra bits that you guys want to do just outside DCS, more than happy to help.
Yeah, we kind of started going into detail with the website, and I
Yeah,
thought it was a good idea to maybe start interviewing people I know or that are generally
yeah.
connected to Star Wars as well.
That reminds me to make a note. I need to make a note to add the link to your website on our website.
Yeah, it's not quite out yet, but it is getting
Yeah,
finalized from what I hear.
yeah. I've got the web address. I just need to add it to ours. Not that anybody visits ours, but I'll do it anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, I gave you the questions beforehand, so you're not getting
Yeah,
completely overrun with them.
yeah. I had a look through and just so I could dig out some dates and that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
and have a think about it.
yeah. And I mean, you had a presentation for us already, especially about how you got into flying, but
Yeah.
for people who were not there basically and are going to just read the article, so the first question would be, how did you get into flying?
I had an interest in aircraft from when I was really young, to be honest, and I think I can't remember exactly where that came from because there's no history of aviation in my family, but probably from movies, and then right at the start of the 80s, the BBC ran a series about fighter pilot training in the RAF, called Fighter Pilot, and I watched that, and that really got me thinking. I'd love to fly fast jets, in the RAF, basically.
Yeah,
And after that, I then joined as it was then the Air Training Corps, which is the now called the RAF Air Cadets. So it's a youth organization sponsored by the Royal Air Force. And we have those cadet organizations sponsored by the Army and sponsored by the Navy. So I joined the one sponsored by the RAF, the Air Cadets, when I was 13. And I would go twice a week, and we would do drill, and we wear kind of RAF uniform. And it was luckily the squadron that I went to was based in the same airport as the unit which offered air experience flying for air cadets in Northern Ireland. So there were at that stage there were 13 units around the United Kingdom, and they had aircraft, and the cadets would go along, and you'd probably fly twice a year, maybe, or once a year. You'd go along and you'd take off and you'd fly for 20 minutes in a Scottish Aviation Bulldog, and we were based at the same airfield that they were at. So any time the cadets didn't show up or cancelled, or the weather was meant to be bad, so they didn't arrive, and then the weather improved. We had lots of opportunities to jump in, so we would fly more often. So that was kind of the first time I got airborne, was with them, and then I worked for them at weekends. I would help them getting the cadets ready to go flying, get them strapped into the aircraft, give them the safety briefings, all that kind of stuff. I would do that at the weekend, and then when I was a bit older, I got permission from my headmaster at school, and I would do that during the week, and I would go down Wednesday afternoon. And then normally at the end of the day's flying, there was a little bit of fuel left, and there was half an hour left, and they would take the staff cadets that were helping them to run the flying program. They would take us up, and so I think I got about 15 or 20 hours flying that way over. I don't know. That would have been 2 or 3 years of doing that. Um, and at that stage, I'm hooked flying. I know what I want to do. I want to join the Air
yeah,
Force. I want to fly jets for the Air Force. Um, I applied for a scholarship from the Air Force to go through sixth form. Didn't get it, but I got offered a flying scholarship, which then led to 30 hours flying at a civilian flying school. Um, and then my father paid a little bit extra for the extra hours, and that got me a private pilot's license. So I had a private pilot's license when I was 17. Um, and then finished school, went to university, and we had a number of university air squadrons. We still do, but there's not quite as many as there used to be. But a number of university air squadrons, which were run by regular RAF pilots, instructors. They had again the Bulldog, the same aircraft that I've been flying with, the Air Experience flight. And you joined, you served about 2.5 years, Royal Air Force Volunteer Reserve, and you went flying in your spare time basically, and you learned how to fly. I did a lot of flying with them. I did like 230 hours, so I'd finished the syllabus in the first 80 hours, and everything after that is just building on it. So you're flying with proper RAF flying instructors, albeit they were all off multi-engine types and that kind of thing. And I say multi-engine. One of the instructors I had was he was a Vulcan pilot. He'd flown Vulcan bombers.
Wow.
Another was they used to fly VC-10 tankers. Another flew Nimrods, and he'd flown Shackletons, which we still had in service at that point. So they came off the larger aircraft types, but yeah, that was fantastic. So I learned the military style of flying, which is slightly different, but
Yeah.
lots of close formation, low level flying, low level navigation, aerobatics, tail chasing, tactical formation at low level, yeah, all sorts. Yeah, so it's great fun. And then at the end of university, it was natural for me just to go into the RAF, and at that stage, the RAF knew what they were getting with me because I'd served with the University Air Squadron for 2.5 years, and I had write-ups from RAF flying instructors saying what I was like at flying, so I had a good chance of getting in, and I did. So I joined the Air Force back in 1989, and sort of went from there, and I left in 2013.
Yeah. So actually, quite a lot of work previously to actually join the
Yeah,
RAF.
yeah, yeah. So I'd done a fair bit of flying. So whenever you joined the RF at that stage, if you hadn't flown at all, you did elementary flying training on the Chipmunk. I was still a Chipmunk at that stage, and you did about 50 hours flying, and that allowed them to look at you. You'd done all the aptitude tests at the selection center, so to make sure you could do sums and you knew which way north was up, and you could estimate angles, and you could do mental arithmetic and all that kind of thing. And how that coordination was tested and all that. But really, until they put you in an airplane, they don't know. So if you'd done no flying, you did elementary flying training. If you'd done enough flying before, you didn't do that. You went straight into basic flying training. So the first aircraft I flew in the Air Force was the Jet Provost Mark III at Linton on Ouse, which was a 50s era jet, side by side seating, great fun. But I'd done a fair amount of flying, so I kind of knew what I was. I had a head start on a lot of other people.
Yeah.
That said, there were a lot of other people there who had flown in all the university air squadrons and done lots of hours as well. So and that you very quickly get to the point where what you've done before doesn't matter, because it's going faster and your fuel lasts less. The big thing on a Jet Provost was knowing where you are at all times, because your fuel lasted about 45 minutes, and a lot
Oh.
less if you were flying low level.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. This kind of brings me to the next question already, which is pretty much, what is the aircraft you like to fly the most?
yeah, I had to think about this, and it's kind of difficult because if you focus in on the aircraft, I give you one answer. If you focus in on the flying, I would probably give you a slightly different one. So I'll kind of give you two here: Tornado F3 or the Hawk. But having said that, all the aircraft I loved. They all had there were all things about them that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed flying aerobatics and the Jet Provost. I really enjoyed just mucking around in the Bulldog, the old piston
Yeah.
aircraft at slow speed. But I instructed on the Hawk. I flew frontline on the Tornado F3. I really enjoyed instructing, but I really loved frontline flying. I loved being part of a close-knit squadron, doing operations, doing lots of detachments, flying with another crewmate, flying with a navigator. I really loved that. So I loved the flying I did on the Tornado. As an aircraft, the Hawk it's like a little sports car, like a jet sports car. It's small, it's powerful, it climbs well, it turns on a sixpence, very maneuverable, fantastic fun, really good fun, great visibility. To instruct in, it's a nice aircraft to instruct in because you've got a good view out, you've also got a good view of what the student in the front is doing. You can kind of peer around the side of his seat and see if he's looking in the right place or not. So you get a good sense of what he's doing and thinking in the front. So it's a nice. It was a nice aircraft to instruct in, but it was a really good fun aircraft to fly. And the instructing I was doing was the tactical sort of weapons training,
Yeah.
or the more tactical flying. So all the instruction was not necessarily in the same airplane. There were a lot of sorties where the student was solo in one airplane and you were solo in another airplane, um, which is really nice because then you're flying your own aircraft. You're not just sitting in the back criticizing what he's doing. You're flying in a different aircraft criticizing what he's doing. But but that was very challenging instructing because you've got to try and work out what he's doing and why, while also using your own aircraft to present him the opportunities to learn from or to take advantage from or to punish mistakes that he made and that kind of thing. You know, if you can imagine flying 1v1 combat on Storm of War, but you're also on the radio trying to tell him, okay, I'm doing this now. Why are you not doing this? You need to be here. You're pulling too much. You're going too fast. You're going too slow. But you're doing it from a different airplane. So, um, Tornado F3, frontline stuff loved it, but as an aircraft, probably the Hawk, just because it was just so much fun. It really
Yeah.
was.
So, sports car over pure speed.
Yeah,
I see.
yeah. The Hawk was, in theory, you could get them supersonic, but ours was so old and so bent that very, very few you could get supersonic. You're meant to try and take it supersonic in a dive during air tests. If you're doing a post maintenance air test on it, but most of ours you would kind of really struggle to get there. They're a little bit bent, and just old. So yeah, and generally you had too many other problems before you get it sort of through the Mac number. And then I flew slightly more modern versions in Canada, and I instructed on those for a few years, but they were just a little bit heavier, and again, and they're carrying things like centerline fuel tank and stuff, so they were a little bit again a little bit difficult to get through the Mac number. But the Tornado F3, yeah, that was off, Although the fastest I got one was Mach 1.6,
Ah,
as
so
far as
not
Mach
quite
number
Mach 1.
goes. No, in theory they're a Mach 2, but we very rarely flew clean. We generally had stuff on them. So
Yeah.
Mach 1.6 at altitude, and I did get up to the velocity, never exceed at lower level at 5,000 feet. Once or twice, which is up towards 800 knots. Which is going, you're going some.
Yeah. Yeah, this would bring me to the next question already, which would be if someone sent you back in time and made you choose to redo your flying career or just choose a different path altogether, would you do it again? And I can almost
Yes,
guess what you would answer.
yes. There might be a few things I would change, but having said that, there's nothing I've done that that I regret. So I have a long-term illness from my military service. Yeah, I would love to do something to avoid getting in that situation, but I would do it again. I don't know if I would encourage my children to join it. I'll have to give that serious thought. I'm not sure. Um, I wouldn't dissuade them. I wouldn't say don't do it, but I'm not sure I would necessarily encourage them to do it. But yeah, I would do it in a heartbeat. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. Yeah, would also bring me to the next question again. How did you get into DCS?
Some random YouTube video. I was watching aviation videos, and I can't remember what it was. Um, I don't think it was a Grim Reapers one, but it's some video, and I honestly I can't remember. But I remember seeing a YouTube video, and I was showing DCS, and I was really surprised at just how far the sim market had moved on. Um, I'd sort of last been into sort of built a PC and PC gaming back in the late 90s, which was kind of Jane's World War II fighters.
Yeah.
Uh, and there was an F-18 Hornet sim. and that was while I was instructing in a valley. And we used to, myself and a couple of guys would grab our PCs and the big heavy CRT monitors and stuff, and took them around to one of our houses and set up a local area network, and then we'd fire up James World War II fighters for a couple of hours and just have a bit of fun. But I was really amazed at just how far it moved on, how much the multiplayer element had moved on, but also how detailed some of these sims were. So I stuck it into Google, looked it up, noticed that they had a Hawk module.
Ooh,
I built
yeah,
a PC for it. Yeah, I bought the Hawk module. And I actually quite liked it. And it if you flew it like a hawk, it flew like a hawk. If you did silly stuff with it, it did silly stuff. But if you actually flew it like a hawk, performance was not bad. There were a few things wrong with it, but the thing was not bad. So I was actually a bit sad to see that go.
yeah,
Kind of wish we'd been able to fix it, fix it properly and actually keep it there. But I built a PC and it kind of went from there. So that was October 18. I looked it up when I bought it. Hawk's first module, Mirage 2000, was the next module I bought, and then the next couple of sales, I ended up buying loads more. So I bought lots and lots of stuff in sales. Then I've kind of run out of stuff that's in a sale that I can buy, and I get stuff occasionally on early access.
yeah,
So I've got most of the modules, apart from the Jeff. It just didn't gel with me. I haven't got the I-16. I haven't got the Kristen Eagle. I think I've probably got everything else. Um, and I do fly most of them from time to time, and I enjoy them all. But yeah,
yeah,
I may. There's still a few modules coming, and every I wasn't going to buy the Hind, but then actually that might be quite interesting. And I'm not going to buy the
yeah,
Apache, but I might. But I'm really
yeah,
looking forward to the Mirage F1 coming because I like the older aircraft.
yeah,
Um, I did some air combat against Mirage F1s when I was flying Tornadoes. Um, I was a Spanish, were flying them at the time. And again, that's kind of an era of aircraft that I'm quite interested in.
yeah,
Mosquito coming. I'm interested to see how they do that one. I think that'll be interesting. Corsair, if they get it right. Both versions of it, the F4U and the A7. I'm interested in both of those. So yeah, so there's so many modules there, and what amazed me looking at DCS was just the depth that the modules had,
yeah.
both in flight modeling and in systems. Um, uh, you know, I know you're going to ask, but I've also got IL2 and I've got Microsoft Flight Sim, but I very rarely fly them
Yeah.
because they don't. IL2 feels um, I don't know the word to describe it.
Arcadey?
Yeah, a little bit. There's whichever aircraft you're in, a little bit different, but they don't feel massively different. They don't feel the same.
Yeah.
And yeah, DCS doesn't get it right at all aspects of it. There's bits of it which don't feel right, but for a flight simulator that's running on a home PC, I think it's pretty bloody amazing, to be honest. You know.
Yeah. Um, I mostly, or basically, we mostly see you flying World War II nowadays. You
Yeah.
mentioned you also fly other modules, but
Yeah, I do. I fly more modern stuff, and I fly the helos, and quite enjoy those. But um, why? Again, going back to the previous one about DCS versus some of the other sims that are out there. Microsoft Flight Sim looks fantastic,
yeah,
but the flight models feel a bit rubbish. But what that's missing out for me is the getting online with a couple of buddies, flying up with another aircraft on your wing, and then going and doing something. So, if you think about if you think about military flying versus civilian flying is generally, if you're doing it professionally, it's about getting from A to B,
yeah,
and you're getting from A to B, and you're probably carrying stuff or carrying people. Whereas military flying is not about that. You take off from A and you land at A generally, hopefully. But between taking off from A and landing at A, you go and do something. You go and it's the operating bit. It's whether it's flying a combat air patrol or um, practice air to ground weapons or whatever. So it's that element, and you normally do that as at least a pair, or maybe a 4-ship, or maybe a 6-ship, or an 8-ship, or maybe even part of as a big guerrilla formation with 20 airplanes. If you're looking at things like exercise red flags, or the initial days of the big operations in the Gulf and that kind of stuff, you've
Yeah.
got hundreds of aircraft. And that's a bit that DCS allows you to do. Um, so I haven't really found anywhere in the multiplayer side yet that I love to do that with the modern stuff. I had another group previously to JG53, and they really do all the modern stuff. But generally, you took off, you went there off. There were random man pads around somewhere that shot you down. Then you're firing harms at a distance at SAM batteries, or dropping stuff off a targeting pod, and it just didn't quite appeal, to be honest. So most of the time, I am flying DCS World War II, but I do enjoy the other stuff.
Yeah.
And what we've ended up doing is I set up a server on my own PC here. I've got a pretty good internet connection for about the past 6 months. So I fire that up, and we just do a little bit of squad mucking around on the other modules from time to time, and fly the helos. We all quite enjoy those. We're doing a little bit of F-14 stuff the other yesterday. One of the guys was looking at it in a trial because it's on sale this weekend.
Yeah.
So we did a bit of F-14 stuff. And yeah, so we do fly those. We just haven't quite find the server that I want to spend a lot of time on. That's kind of similar to Storm of War. Storm of War, I feel, is quite different. It's quite different to any of the other servers I've seen, and I haven't seen a modern server that appeals to me the way Storm of War does.
Yeah. It's definitely something that is very rare inside the DCS community.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. This also kind of runs into the next point of how did you get to Storm of War and meet Phil and Dietrich and all those
I
people?
saw some of Phil's videos because I'd started watching a couple of DCS videos, and then I saw some of Phil's videos um, covering Storm of War, and I bought one or two of the World War II modules. Can't remember which one I bought first. Probably the Spitfire. So I thought I'll go and have a look at that, and I'll pop on there. And I was just getting SRS set up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that was back in April 2020. Um, I looked up my stats, and April 2020 is when I started on Storm of War. And I think it was shortly after that they released the Anton. So I bought the Anton because I used to build plastic models when I was a kid, and I remember building a 190.
Yeah.
And I just think the 190 looks like a lovely combat World War II combat airplane.
Yeah.
Well designed. It just looks right to me. The Anton.
Yeah, I see
It
that
looks like
too.
it looks like a warbird.
Yeah.
And I bought the Anton, and then I started flying the Anton. So I was flying on blue, and then I ran into Dusty and Truno, who are on JG53, and Tracer and Frizlev, who hasn't been around much recently. But they were generally flying the same time I was, so I would get airborne on my own and just chat to them in SRS, and then I would fly with them for a bit, and then they asked if I wanted to join them. I said, yeah, definitely. So I joined JG53 after about a month or so on that. And then we kind of went from there. So most of the original members of JG53 are still there. I think we're up to about 6 or something. But then I just flew with JG53, and then gradually it'd be chatting with Phil every now and then because we were fairly active as a group. We'd offer
Yeah.
to help as much as possible, and just chatting with Phil and Dietrich, and I try and help them if I can. They do so much work on the server, and it's if guys can help, offer to help at all. I think it's good to do it. So if I saw something, I think it'd be great if if this element was changed on Storm of War or something. It's nicer to be able to say, I think it'd be lovely if we could change this. Is there anything I can do to help?
Yeah.
And then you just help with the occasional trial and stuff. But yeah, they do so much to make that server work for us. And yeah, generally Phil was flying red. Now he started flying a bit of blue, so we've flown together a few times, and we're trying to do a little bit with 54 now. So we did the odd joint operation with 54 when they were flying blue airplanes, which was great fun. And then when we do when the big group fly is on Storm of War next month,
Yeah, I think.
we're going to do joint formation of 109s with 54 because we've only got about 4 guys I think are flying, and they've got around 4, so we'll fly as a joint squad for that one.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it'll be good fun. I need to try and get the guys practicing. I've come up with some formation references for echelon and that kind of stuff, and if I can get 2 of them, I've told them if I can get 2 of them flying echelon, so if I can get a 3-ship echelon, we can fly a Diamond 9.
Yeah.
It's just adding more airplanes,
Yeah.
but we'll see. We will see. The 109 is not the easiest aircraft to fly close formation in.
Yeah, it does have a lot of engine torque and it's missing some essential trim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's. I think it's probably the most difficult aircraft to fly formation in. Actually, of any of the ones we've got, the Allied aircraft, they're all easier. But yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. I'm not sure exactly what we're gonna what we're gonna do. We should find out shortly. But we'll have a good time anyway. Because you guys are flying in it as well, aren't you? You're flying 109s in it. Is that right?
Yeah, Knauf and the guys are gonna join with like 6 players.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I myself won't join because Satal is starting and 2 other
All right.
tournaments
Yep.
at the same time, and I'm flying
Yep.
competitively for a team there.
Yep.
So sadly, the schedules overlap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be good. It'd be good.
Yeah.
Bit of
So
fun. I don't think anything like this is good fun because it
yeah.
gets maybe a little bit more publicity, but it also gets more people interacting with one another and getting to know people better as well, which is great fun.
Yeah. Exactly. This also kind of ties into the next question again. So, what is your favorite aircraft? I mean, most people see you flying 109 pretty much exclusively. Your favorite aircraft in
Yeah.
DCS this time, of course.
Um. In DCS, yeah, it'd be one of the German ones, and I think that part of it comes from I prefer flying on the blue side to the red side, and um that's probably a separate thing. And there's a few reasons for that, which we may or may not want to go into. But I generally prefer flying on the blue. I used to fly the Anton a lot, and the only reason I don't is the current state of the weapons is just rubbish.
Yeah.
So I'd love to be able to take the Anton up with a cluster bomb and drop it on the target and have good effect against the right target. So I'd love to be able to get airborne with the big rocket tubes and shoot them with bombers and then drop the rocket tubes and actually be able to defend myself and not be running around at 470 kilometers per hour because that's the fastest you can get with the damn things on.
Yeah.
So the current state of the weapons on the Anton kind of boil that a bit, which is why I'd probably fly the 109. I've been flying the 109 a lot more. I've got my stats here. I'll have a little look at my stats. The past month. Yeah, so there's a few months at the start of the year where I was doing more Anton work than 109 work. But and most of last year, I was my Anton was a preferred aircraft. But as the numbers of red players grew and the number of blue players didn't, then the Anton just become less and less survivable. So I would fly the K4 more because I kind of feel you can hold your own more in a dogfight,
Yeah.
and it suits the way I prefer to fight more as well. I quite like turning. I quite like rolling scissors. I quite like rolling fights. I quite like those kind of fights. So the K4 kind of fits that a bit better. As we've seen more blue players come on, which we've seen in recent months, I think that's been really nice, and I'm really hoping they give a little bit of love to the World War II modules, fix some of these bugs, and then I'll probably try and fly the Anton a bit more.
Yeah.
Um, so kind of favorite World War II modules, probably the 109 because I've spent a bit more time on it, but it's really close between that and the Anton. But that said, I've really enjoyed flying the P-47 the last few days. sort of getting into that. So I don't think there's any of the World War II modules that I wouldn't recommend to people. The one I'd be most hesitant about would be the Dora, because it's kind of the oldest, and the way the engine randomly fails at the moment.
Yeah.
I've had that quite a few times, and it's just so annoying that it really puts me off it. Um, the P51 is probably the most vanilla is probably the word to use for it, but it's a great module, and you do a lot in it. The 47's got lots of character. The Anton's got lots of character. The 109's got lots of character. Spitfire's just really nice to fly. I think the Spitfire is the most flexible aircraft in the World War II stable, because it's got good guns. It's got fantastic maneuverability. It's not the fastest, but it goes fast enough, especially if you've got energy. It turns really well. It's easy to fly. It's a really fun module. In VR, you've got these big massive wings. So the Spitfire's great as well.
Yeah.
So I think they're all great, to be honest, and yeah, I'd be happy to fly any of them. But I'll probably settle on probably the 109 at the moment, but it's really close between that and the Anton. If they fix the weapons on the Anton, I think I'd probably fly the Anton more, unless it was like 2 blues and 8 reds, in which case I'd probably take a K4 up.
Yeah, it's just P51s versus Anton is already hard enough.
Yeah,
Having
exactly,
8 of them on
exactly.
your tail is not really leveling the
Yeah,
playing field.
yeah, exactly. And you're not going to run away, and yeah, you can outmaneuver one of them or two of them, but you're not going to outmaneuver the number that they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you see any parallels between real flying and flight sims?
I think I kind of thought very carefully about this. I was instructed during my Air Force career. As part of my Air Force career, I also helped with um, buying sims and supporting the guys that bought sims. Um, and I did a lot of instructing in flight simulators, and I think you can translate lessons from one to the other to a certain extent. As far as sort of DCS as a sim, I think it would depend on your setup and how you approached it. Um, and there are some things that are much better, much more effective in a sim
Yeah,
to learn. Like, if I was to try and teach somebody how to fly radar intercepts, flight sim's great for that, because I can pause it, I can stop it. You're not burning fuel. He's not wasting his time. You can kind of reset it, start again. Or if you want to teach somebody the communications to use and that kind of stuff, if you're trying to coordinate basic fighting maneuvers as a pair and practice your radio calls and all that kind of stuff, yeah, I think flight sims are fantastic for that, and you can use that. And I know there's one of the ex-instructors from RAF Valley has a channel, and I think he does some of that actually with the guys up at Valley still
yeah.
using DCS.
Yeah, I think I know who
Um,
you're talking about. I think he flies
yeah,
the F5 a lot, right?
yeah, and there is obviously there is a commercial element of DCS, so you can do that. Uh, However, it's quite tempting for air forces to replace real flying with sims, and again, you can do that to a point, but you can't replace it entirely. So it's
Yeah,
from my view, flight sims are complementary to real flying, and you can make better progress in the time you have in a real airplane by having done flight simulator time. So the guy will understand better. You can fit more into your sortie. You can have used the same language in a flight sim. So whenever he hears it in the aircraft, he's already heard the language. He already knows what to expect. So he's got much more spare capacity to take it on to actually fly the airplane, because flying the airplane is different.
yeah,
Doing BFM, sitting on a comfy seat, with track IR or even VR with a joystick on your thing, is not the same as looking over your shoulder at 7G. It's
yeah,
very, very different. And it's those elements that are you've got to fly real time. You can learn weapons in a sim, that kind of stuff, but actually going out and pulling the trigger and hearing the gun going off, feeling the gun going off, and smelling the gun going off, and smelling the cordite is different. Um, Firing an air-to-air missile, it's coming whizzing past your ear, supersonic by the time it's come off the end of the rail, is very different to doing it in a sim. So, yeah, stuff translates from both ways. So I use a lot of the techniques I use for ground attack are the ones that I taught on the Hawk.
Yeah.
Most of my kind of BFM is based on stuff that I would have done for rail because the same techniques work. A low yo-yo works, a high yo-yo works. Putting yourself under lag works. It's all guns only stuff, obviously, in the World War II stuff, but all that BFM side works. If you fly rolling scissors, where you take lead, where you take lag, over the top or over the bottom, all that kind of stuff. All that works because DCS has modeled it.
Yeah.
And the flight models are good enough for you to be able to, to do that. So there is a lot of crossover between the two. And I think, with the fidelity that we've got these days in flight sims, it's just amazing, especially in VR. The first time I put on VR was with a Rift S, which is low resolution, but I was just blown away. It was just, wow, this is absolutely amazing. This is better than the flight sims I used, on the front line now. And yeah, it was fantastic, and I love it. So I've spent the money. I've got a fairly good setup.
Yeah.
I've got a Reverb GT now. I bought a second-hand car seat off the internet, so that's the seat I sit in. So it's a nice solid base. I've got a stick with the extension. Sits on the floor in front of me. I've got the throttle where the throttle is in the cockpit. So when I sit in the cockpit, if I want to reach for the throttle, I can kind of look at the throttle and reach for it, and I find it. I use a mouse to select switches, so I kind of reach forward for those as if I'm reaching for the switches. So it feels right. It's very, very immersive. Yeah. So you could do a lot of training on that. They need to fix their multi-crew trainers. It's a real shame they're in their state they're in.
Yeah.
The L39. C101's very good because that's the third party one, but the L39 is pretty poor. The Yak 52 is pretty poor as far as that multi-crew stuff goes.
Yeah. I mean, even
So they
the
really need to
F-14
fix
has
that.
some glaring issues.
Yeah,
Mainly,
that's not quite so bad because you're not
yeah.
you don't have the dual flying controls and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I had with the previous group I was in, I were going to try the L39 and try it in multi-crew, and I was going to try and teach them how to fly, running the brakes and that kind of thing, and you just couldn't do it because um, we had different fuel states, and if I put the gear down in the back,
Oh.
the gear didn't come down for him in the front, and all that kind of stuff. It was just it just did not work. Which was a real shame because that sounds really good. I think the C101 is much better, but it feels quite underpowered. I'm looking forward to eventually the two-seat version of the Mirage F1. Mirage F1 is going to come
Oh
out
yeah.
with 4 different versions on it, and
Yeah,
it's
one
going to have a
trainer, right?
two-seat. Yeah, it's going to have a two-seat trainer, so that's going to be a proper frontline sort of capable fast jet, albeit an earlier generation, but two-seat jobby. With
Yeah.
with flying controls in the back. So that'll be interesting because I quite like taking the trainers up just in single player and flying them from the back seat.
Yeah. I think we're actually
Um,
getting a modernized Mirage F1 as well. One with MFDs and all that.
on the Mirage F1, yeah, I think there's 4 different versions. So a very basic initial version, a slightly more advanced one, then the most modernized one, and then the two-seat. Yeah, that I think that'll be a good module. And Aegis, the guys are the guys that did the same guys that did C101, and it took them a while to get that right, but it's a really nice module.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that Mirage F1. I think that'll be a good fun aircraft.
Yeah.
To fly around in.
Yeah. This also, the next question is kind of in the same ballpark, I'd say. Mainly, DCS is the community is kind of known for scaring fighter pilots off or real pilots off, because for example, you go on the forums and you have some armchair pilot claiming they could cold start an F-18 and fly into combat, and the U.S. Navy should just hire him, or they
Yeah,
argue with actual pilots about tactics.
yeah. I think flying the sim's not the same, but
Yeah,
um, and even a full military sim where you got all the gear on, you fly with full gear, you get strapped in, you got a full cockpit around you, and you've got a G-suited plates and that kind of stuff, and you've got a vibrating seat. Even that's not the same. Or even if you put them in a centrifuge, it's not the same. But it's starting to get very close. But yeah, DCS isn't. I think real pilots just find people to fly with who aren't like that, and then you just don't engage with the communities that behave like that.
yeah,
I've seen it the odd time on Storm of War, the Storm of War Discord. But it's pretty good there. It is pretty good, but you do see a little bit. There aren't many DCS YouTube channels that I've blocked YouTube showing me, but one of them is Grim Reapers because there was so much stuff presented as fact, which was just so wrong that it was really annoying, and I would just end up screaming at the screen, going, "You're talking out of your whatever." Um, so I blocked. I don't allow YouTube to show me the GR videos because you just find them so wrong. And then there's the odd other stuff where you really just bite your lip and go, "Oh, yeah, not really." Um, but DCS is not real life, so guys can play it how they want. There was I don't know if you saw it at the time. There's a big discussion about air-to-air gunnery that I kind of came in on, and I kind of regretted it because
oh,
I just from real life, this will get you more kills, and I was kind of on the back of 50 cals don't kill anything. I can't kill anything with a 50 cal sort of thing.
yeah,
And I was kind of on the back end of that, and I was trying to get the point across of how you might get better tracking gun solutions. Which came from real aircraft shooting guns at moving stuff. And some of the comments that came back, sort of, I just got the point where I just have to disengage with that really because it's just going to annoy me. So I kind of, yeah, it's difficult because you'll see someone giving advice as gospel and it's quite poor advice sometimes.
yeah,
But it's a game, and everybody can play it how they want to play it, and everybody can fly it how they want to fly it, and everybody can be as successful, if you want to use that as a word in it, as they want to be or not. And that's all fine, to be honest. As long as people are enjoying it, it's great. And then if people do want to change the techniques or use some real life techniques to sort of fly in it, if people wanted to ask, I'd always offer an opinion. But even those techniques, you got to bear in mind that if I was talking about an air-to-air gunnery technique, it's an air-to-air gunnery technique from someone who's had other training. So, it's going to take a while to learn it or get used to it or to be looking
yeah,
at the right kind of things, really, to be able to apply it.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, you get trolls is probably a good word. If you get sort of people who are just trolling, then yeah, the guys with experience just move out of it. But there are plenty of real life pilots flying. JG53. We have a mixed group. I'm in there. We've got a retired Royal Marine in there. We've got a current airline pilot in there. We've got a paramedic. We've got a truck mechanic. We've got a bus driver. Um, and I love flying with them, and we've got a really really nice group that flies in there, So there's real pilots in there. The previous group, there's a current Apache pilot in there, and he posts quite often on the DCS forum and the
yeah.
rotary helicopters. He occasionally gets really stupid comments back from people saying, "No, you're absolutely wrong there."
Oof.
He's a current instructor on the Apache,
Yeah.
and I can see him having to bite his lip, you know, because he's just trying to help people. But Yeah,
Yeah.
you just kind of disengage a bit with those communities, but they're still enjoying DCS. You know, the real pilots. You know, that they enjoy doing stuff in their off time. And if you work as flying, although it's a career, you probably do it because you really enjoy flying.
Yeah.
You know, you know, that's why you do it. And DCS just allows you to do that with a group of mates and have a bit of fun. And it
Yeah.
might be a bit of mucking around. It might be pretending to fly Spitfires on Storm of War, or flying under bridges or whatever, you know, and that kind of stuff. But it's the people that you're flying with and just having fun, and they're going to do that. And if you wanted to put in there, you know, I'd encourage any real life pilots to go and join Storm of War and fly in Storm of War, because I just think it's generally it's really good, especially on blue, especially on the blue side. You know.
Yeah. Red, not recommended due to P51. Sorry.
Yeah, it feels red feels different to blue on Storm of War.
Yeah.
It's probably I'll probably leave it there, but it's red feels to me the actual missions feel different anyway, but just uh, I do kind of feel there's almost two different sides, you know, on Storm of War, and sometimes red has a different, you know, has a different feel about it than blue, and blue
Yeah.
feels a bit more chilled out, I think, you know.
Yeah. You mentioned that you like to fly with JG54, I think that was.
53,
Ah,
I mean, yeah,
yeah, 53,
yeah,
and the other community was
yeah,
54.
yeah, yeah, 54. So Phil's lot,
Ah, yeah.
really, because you know, yeah, Phil wanted to fly some sort of larger missions, you know, that they quite enjoy flying the longer missions, and we were keen to start doing that as well. So we ended up flying a couple of sort of joint missions where we get everyone out of England and fly across if we're flying on red, or we'd fly out of Argentine and Goulet, or even further south, and then all join up and go up and bomb one of the airfields, or bomb a bomb a target. We haven't done that for a while. But what I find, especially on blue, is we've ended up doing. We're always on SRS.
Yeah.
Um, we do use Discord for comms, but we're always on SRS, and there are quite a few people that we've flown with quite a lot on SRS. And if they're on, we'll ask them where they are, and we'll coordinate with them, and we might go to the same target, or we might offer to give them top cover, um, or we tell them where we're going and ask them if they want to come along and that kind of thing. So there are other groups there that we just naturally coordinate with because we're on at the same time as them.
Yeah.
To be honest, so I'm thinking, you know, the likes of Derby, whenever we were flying blues, quite a lot. Quite a few of the guys that are in SRF, you know, we would try to coordinate with as well. So we probably do a little bit less of that on red. We do that more with the guys off 54, just because we've got to know them. Um, but what I find on uh, blue was we would coordinate and people would coordinate back.
Yeah.
Whereas on red, you kind of say what you're doing and then you kind of get silence. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden you just find you've got 5 Spitfires and 6 P-51s there that are not talking to you, and it gets very confusing because you don't know who's there.
Yeah.
Um, so it works much better on blue. Um, but yeah, yeah, we're really just flying with whoever's on at the time, to be honest, and we're generally receptive to that. There's only a few people we're probably less keen on, and that's just from experience. But anybody will give anybody a, you know, a sort of a, you know, a free ride start with, you know, yeah, just join in, you know, get on the radio and join in with us and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and then we'll try and coordinate and go from there. And it doesn't matter if guys are less experienced, because you know, we're very happy to help. It's the only kind of gotcha is you've got to use SRS if you're in Storm of War. I've
Yeah.
seen people they're asking questions in the chat, and if you type in the chat window, your controls are locked now. From
Yeah.
I think that was something came out 2.7. It's very difficult to do if you're flying in VR. So we do sometimes try and type help to people, but it's very difficult to do if they're trying to do it in the chat window. So just ask the question on SRS, and if it's quiet, we'll go and fly with them,
Yeah.
and we'll take them up and take them to the target. And I've done that quite a few times where somebody's gone, how do you find the targets? Where are you? I'm at Argentine. Okay, well we're we're at Goulet, we'll pick you up on the way past, follow us, and we'll take you to the target. And I've taken them and I've shown them the target, and then let them attack it. Um, and yeah, we're more than happy to do that because just trying to encourage people to enjoy the server more.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few people will do that. So pretty much we'll interact with anybody that's that's fun, because that's what we're out to get. We're out to have fun on it.
Yeah. And you already mentioned your wishes and hopes for getting the Anton fixed eventually. And I
Yeah,
think a lot of Stonewall
yeah, that
players
would be
kind
good.
of,
That would be good.
yeah, a lot of us kind of identify with that as well. Especially Dietrich, I think he's very invested into that as well.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he
Yeah.
is.
So, do you have any other hopes for the future of DCS or the community?
Yeah, I would love to see more third parties doing World War II modules, because I think that would help it just help it grow a bit faster. Um, I know we've got Magnitude 3 or Lather X Sims, depending what whatever you want to call them, are going to be doing the F4.
Yeah.
So looking forward to seeing that. Uh, there's Flying Iron Simulations that produced a P38 for I think it was for X-Plane, but at the time they kind of hinted they were doing it in such a way that they left open the option to put it into other sims later on, including DCS.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of hoping maybe eventually P38 might come. I'd love to see other versions of maybe the 109 that would cause less controversy. Although actually, I don't think it would make much difference to the performance relative to performance of the aircraft
Yeah.
in DCS. So there's more other things. There's more things that make more differences than whether or not it's a K4 or a G14, or even a G6.
Yeah.
I'd love to see sort of more third parties get in. I'm really not that bothered about a move to the Pacific. It'd be interesting, but there's so much to do in what they've got already in World War II.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see something for the Cold War side. Um, I'd love to see a server like Storm of War, but running sort of Cold War era aircraft. But I'm not quite sure how that would work. But I would quite like to see that. As far as Storm of War goes, it kind of this will maybe sound a bit strange, but I'd love to see other servers become busier, other than Storm of War.
Yeah.
Because I think other servers could very much complement what Phil and Dietrich do, and it would probably offer something for the more casual crowd that just want to take off, go to con, dogfight.
Yeah.
And I think if there was other servers out there that they could do that on, that had enough customers on them that they could do it, I think that would probably help Storm of War as well as help other servers, and it would help the World War II community grow.
Yeah.
And then people will find they'll find a server that kind of fits how they play a little bit better. Um, I'm hoping that the move to Vulcan for DCS overall will just mean that you can put higher numbers in, whether that's on the AI side or whether or not that's actual number of players.
Yeah.
And I think I'd probably hope Phil would maybe put more on the AI side and try and have more targets or more moving targets or more escorts or more bomber raids or larger bomber raids. I think that would be really nice to see. He's got some of the bomber formations are getting quite large on the later sorties, but I think if DCS was able to handle it a little bit better and and make more use of the CPU on multi-threaded CPUs, I think that would allow him to do a lot more in the missions. I know from discussions with Phil and Dietrich that they have plenty of plans in hand for future development stuff, and
Yeah.
I kind of hope everything stabilizes a little bit so they can start to achieve those, and to start to bring those in. So I think it's kind of I kind of just it would be lovely to see DCS stabilize a little bit, and particularly for the World War II side, I'd love them just to resource the World War II team so they can support what we've already got better,
Yeah.
because they're going to want to develop new modules. They have to keep developing new modules, but they've got to support what they've got already, and I don't think they've done that very well.
Yeah, they have like two
You know,
people also in the
past
DC as
couple of
well
years.
too.
Yeah, so they need to resource that a little bit better so bugs get squashed a bit faster. They're a bit more responsive on that side of it. And I think that would really help. And I think that would encourage more people to run World War II servers, and that would encourage more people to buy the modules and more people to fly them and that kind of stuff. So you know, develop develop the AI side, you know, so give us the give us the other transport aircraft, give us more bombers to shoot at, maybe put more AI fighter aircraft in to run sweeps and stuff. Although I think there's a limitation there with the simple flight model they use sometimes, but
Yeah.
but I would like to see kind of those aspects developed rather than just more and more modules from ED, which is kind of why I'd love to focus on the ED side of World War II to be more on that support of what we've got and fleshing that side out and get some third party developers in to give us some more warbirds.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and as far as the community goes, I think what Phil and Dietrich have done with Stumble War, I think it's quite amazing, to be honest. If you look at the growth of it, the growth of the activity on the server, but also the Stumble War Discord is, it's very busy. It's generally really well mannered. And there's some really nice little groups on there, and every time you see there's more and more groups, there's a chap yesterday I think was on talking about there he's flying with his sons. I said, we'll just form a squadron. He's asking,
Yeah.
how do we go about doing this? So passed him a link, send him a message, get a tag, form a squadron, fly as a group, join up with other groups, just enjoy it. And it's nice I'd love to see more and more of that going on. And then these groups start to interact a bit more, so we should really do something with you guys at some point, once we're back on Blue.
Yeah.
And actually arrange a time to go and dominate somewhere, with 20 airplanes. I think that would be quite good fun.
Certainly.
But yeah, I think that's that's the side of Summer where I'd love to see just continue doing what it's already doing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because it's already doing it really well.
All right. I think that was all of my questions. So, yeah. Thank you for your
Yeah, I went
time.
in there. What was it? What was your most risky one at the start, which you didn't cover? But I don't know if you want to cover that or not. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, the most risky situation. Yeah, that's actually seem to have skipped over that. I don't know if you want to go into it.
Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, I did 23 years in the Air Force and did all my training, 2 frontline tours, 2 instructional tours amongst that. And in all that time, I had quite a lot of very near misses with other airplanes. Some close enough that I could hear the other aircraft go past me.
Ooh.
But so those were probably the most risky. As far as sort of operational flying goes, probably low level night operations against helicopters over Bosnia, just because there was serious risk of stuffing that up, and that is really demanding flying, using night vision goggles down low against somebody that didn't want you being there.
That's a nice way of putting
Instructing,
it.
yeah, instructing was probably as risky as any of the frontline flying I did. I had quite a few times where a student would put you into a situation that, if I hadn't had the experience I'd had at that stage, would have gone very wrong very, very quickly. I didn't have to take control that often as an instructor. I would try and avoid taking control if I could. But there are a few times where I've just had to take the controls and push or pull as hard as I could to avoid another airplane. And I was it's just one of those one of those things. If you're flying 2 jets that are maneuvering very hard against one another, they can get quite close.
Yeah.
The most dramatic, I think, I talked about it whenever I did the talk. That was a lightning strike when I was flying the Tornado.
Yeah.
It came in through the radome at the front, and came out through the top of the tail and took the top few feet of the tail off, just split it in half, and also came out through all the aerials or the antennas on the aircraft. So that caused a few electrical problems. Tripped the main computer off, tripped off the main radio, basically fried the main radio. Lost a head-up display at one point and that kind of stuff. So once we kind of got some of the stuff reset and got onto a standby radio and started speaking to people, then just flying back in towards our home airfield, and obviously, the thunderstorms were there because the weather was particularly poor. So we're trying to deal with this in very poor weather as well. And then did a low speed handling check at height, so we didn't have any surprises later. And basically, as soon as we slowed down and got some angle of attack on the aircraft, that damage to the tail was causing an awful lot of vibration and rocking, and you could feel it through the rudder pedals. So I had to land a little bit faster than we would probably want to do. We got the aircraft down, but that was probably the most dramatic, but not as risky as some of the other stuff that got away with, basically.
Yeah.
I lost quite a lot of friends in aircraft, serving in the RAF, and there were almost all, well, they were all in training. They weren't flying operations. They weren't. I lost a couple of friends doing big heavy exercise stuff, because they were very demanding flying, but a lot of it was, some of it was very demanding flying, some of it was very routine flying, just poor weather, and just a mistake, and they just didn't get away with it, basically. So yeah, there's military flying. It's not risky is the wrong word to use, because if it was risky, we wouldn't be allowed to do it. But it's not without risk, and the risk is managed, basically. And there's lots of regulations and techniques and training and flight simulators and everything else that you put in. So whenever something happens, you're well placed to deal with it. And it's almost in more mundane times. If you're a little bit rusty, you're flying a little bit fast, the weather's a little bit bad, you're descending a little bit faster than you should be, and then at the next point you've flown into the ground. I lost a couple of good friends that did that. So there's always, there's always risk there, but it's military flying is very managed risk, to keep it as safe as you reasonably can, while still doing something which is very demanding. You're not flying an airliner, you're not flying passengers from A to B. You're training hard to go and do hard things.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of probably what I'd say on that one, really. I guess that's probably where you talk about military flying versus civilian flying. Not to say, some civilian flying can involve risk as well. If the weather's poor or you get caught out, but generally it's the risk level you would run at would hopefully be lower.
Yeah.
But people still have accidents. It's a
Sadly.
complex thing. I did a tour as an accident, as an air accident investigator, and aircraft accidents are always complex. They're never simple. They're always, these days they're all a number of things that led to it that went wrong, that should have stopped it but didn't. But all these little things added up to allow something else to cause the aircraft accident. But that just happens if if you fly enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that was the last topic. And
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you're gonna whittle all that lot down, but
we will see. We will see.
yeah,
Yeah, thank you
yeah.
again. I'm gonna stop
No,
the
no, you're
recording here,
welcome.
I think.